and it took us across a shortcut, basically, from Nevada over to California. So almost as soon as we turned off, we kind of ran into some trouble.
I got some red flags right away when we made this turn. First off, nobody else was making this turn, which is always a little worrying. Nobody's on the road, and we don't go more than a mile, maybe. And all of a sudden,
there's a big orange caution sign that says flooded on the side of the road.
Love to see that.
But only half of the road was a little flooded.
So we go around this blind corner, and we hit the next red flag.
Hi, you've reached the Caldwells. Please leave a message, and we will get back with you just as soon.
Welcome to the RV Work-Life Balance Podcast with your traveling nomadic hosts, Sherry and Russ Caldwell.
Hey, that's us. We're living the dream, working from home, baby.
No matter where home is.
And you can, too.
Okay, we're going. Would you like to say the word?
No.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Welcome back, everyone, to this next episode. We're excited to kind of, talk about another facet of what we do in this work-life balance on the road with our RV. We had some what we're calling dangerous detours, I guess, right?
Dangerous Detours.
Okay, you've got to set this up for me, Sherry. This is my lovely wife, Sherry, our chief navigator and all-around awesome person. She's in charge of figuring out how, when, and where we're going to go. So
right.
Where were we and where were we going?
Okay. You're the driver. I'm the navigator.
I just steer. That's all I do. I just steer.
Okay. So, we were leaving Las Vegas.
I love that.
We were picking up Charlie, the fabulous unicorn RV, at NIRVC in Las Vegas.
Love them.
Had a little work done while we were at the convention in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so leaving Las Vegas, we decided we're heading up to Lee Vining, California, which is the back door to Yosemite National Park.
Yeah, and it's one place I've always wanted to go. We haven't been to Yosemite yet. And, most people go in the main entrance over there, but Sherry found a secret entrance over Tioga Pass.
Right.
I guess it's not secret, but for me, I described it that way.
One of the things we totally go into or believe in is going where people aren't. And especially at this time of year. It's Memorial Day.
If you didn't hear it in another episode, was on the Sunset Adventures. And that phrase she just made is like, we try to go when people aren't and where they're not. That's a key thing. And so this was part of that strategy, wasn't it?
Yeah. To go up the backside of the Sierra Nevada mountains and go into Yosemite National Park from the back door, Tioga Pass. Okay, great. So we were leaving Las Vegas. We didn't want to travel too far that first night. So I had found this quirky little place called Longstreet Inn and Casino, just about an hour and a half outside of Las Vegas.
That place was awesome. It's one. Sherry finds these really quirky places that turn out to be some of our favorites. And we'll eventually come back and talk about this place, but loved Longstreet Casino. Out in the middle of nowhere. It's just super retro, very cool.
Very retro, old style casino. Roadhouse almost, right?
And a great campground.
Yeah.
Tons of spots.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah. And the view, oh my goodness. We woke up and just had coffee with the view of the mountains. It was wonderful.
So we're sitting there at Longstreet Inn and Casino, which is in the Amargosa Valley of Nevada. Sitting there for one night. We are about half an hour outside of Death Valley National Park. I know, right? So here in my head, I'm thinking, we'll go to Death Valley. We'll go through Death Valley and then up to this backside of Yosemite and all of this extreme planning after a really long week for us in Las Vegas. So anyway.
So the Death Valley was high on our list. We really thought we were going to do it. In fact, when we were at that Longstreet Casino, at one point, Sherry was like, hey, maybe we'll just take the Jeep over, go spend the part of the morning to go check it out and come back. But that next morning, we got up and decided, no, we should probably get to this next location. We'll come back to Death Valley. So we had prioritized the second route, which is what we ended up taking over the Death Valley route, because when Sherry looked at the path, it was very squiggly, as she likes to call it, which is these tight turns, which in the rig are not easy. And she said, you know what, maybe we don't do that. And we took the more straight, what we thought was straight route to avoid Death Valley.
The more direct route through Nevada.
Yeah.
On the big roads in the desert versus the squiggly roads in the mountains of California. So we set out and everything was fine.
A little windy, but in general, pretty good. It was a little bit of scary wind there, but it was okay.
Yeah. So then we got to a little cut through from the Nevada side over to California, Highway 120.
Was that near the town of Bishop? Where was Bishop? Was that?
It was Benton.
Benton. Okay, sorry.
Benton, Nevada.
We'll have to double check that fact there. So yeah, we decided to take this cut through that the app was recommending, right?
Yes.
What was the app we use again?
For navigation, we use an RV Safe GPS app called RV Life Trip Wizard.
What does it mean to be RV safe?
Well, the beauty of that app, as opposed to just Googling or Waze or whatever GPS app, is that Trip Wizard, you enter in the length of your vehicle, and we've got a whole lot of vehicle.
We do.
Between the
RV 40-foot
and the Jeep.
RV, 15 rough feet of car and equipment to tow it. Yeah, it's a pretty long vehicle.
So anyway, with the RV Trip Wizard, the app knows our length. It knows the height of our vehicle, which is 13 feet. And that's super important when you're going under bridges and tunnels and things like that. And also the weight.
That's right. For bridges that are not rated to handle heavy vehicles like ours.
So RV Trip Wizard, and I put in our destination, and it gives me routing choices that are supposedly RV safe or RV friendly. It doesn't always work out that way.
It's mostly right, but there's been a few
trust
problems.
But verify.
That's
we'll
right.
talk about that later.
That's right.
But okay, so we were on the route, and it took us across a shortcut, basically, from Nevada over to California, Levining, where we wanted to be, Highway 120. So almost as soon as we turned off, we kind of ran into some trouble.
Yeah, got some red flags right away when we made this turn. First off, nobody else was making this turn, which is always a little worrying. Nobody's on the road, and we don't go more than a mile, maybe. And all of a sudden, we hit a sign that says what?
There's a big orange caution sign that says flooded on the side of the road.
Love to see that.
But only half of the road was a little flooded.
So, one of the two lanes was open, so that's okay. So we go around the flooded side of this blind corner, and we hit the next red flag.
Well, and that's because we had nowhere else to go in that moment.
Right.
So the only thing we could do was go to the dry side and then pull over to the side safely off the side of the road.
Right.
So that's the only thing we could do with our 55 feet of vehicle in that situation. But as soon as we came around, then there was a big semi truck, a tow truck kind of thing, big flatbed semi. That's
right.
what it would be.
Yeah.
Pulled over on the side of the road. So we pulled over in front of him. And he had his hazards on, and he was obviously looking at his maps or something.
That's right.
To assess the situation, which is exactly what we were doing, right?
That's another one of our rules there, again, is if you see trucks on the road, that's good. If you see trucks pull over, and we've been in big storms and all the truckers pull over, and we're like,
it's time to pull over.
It's time to pull over.
Yeah.
And so this trucker pulled over right after the flooding sign, and we're like, okay, he might know something we don't. And we don't want to go drive off a bridge or something that we can't see.
Yeah. Plus, we just had to assess the situation to see if we could turn around.
That's right.
and get back to the main highway and go a different way. But in that moment, you stop and figure all of this out.
So we happen to be luckily at a intersection there. So now I say lucky, but to be honest, our rig, we can't make U-turns in this thing we need a lot of room for U-turns. And there really wasn't room for a U-turn. So we were going to have to make some tough decisions of whether we keep going forward, connected up, or, if we're going to try to go a different direction, sometimes we just have to unhook the car and then we can back up, because we can't back up with the car there. And this was something we learned when we got the rig. When you tow a trailer, it's easy to back up. You actually just have to know which way to turn the wheel to get the trailer to go. But when you're towing a vehicle 4 wheels down on the ground, if you back up very far, there's a risk that the front tires will turn one way and the wrong way, and it'll actually damage the car.
Mess your car.
Mess your car up. So we've been very nervous about that, because that is our lifeboat. If something goes wrong with
That's
Charlie,
right.
Our car is our lifeboat. So we're always careful with that.
That's exactly right. Cannot reverse with a car attached.
What do you always say?
Well,
if something happens
Russ drives the rig. I have driven the big RV with the Jeep attached, and it's okay. So I could, but I don't like to. He likes to drive.
Yeah.
So, and I like to navigate and get snacks and, do my thing over on the passenger side. And so that it works out really well. But one thing I did learn, and is very important to me, is knowing how to unhook the Jeep and drive away.
For safety reasons. Yeah. I'm going to pretend it's not because, something between us. But
if anything ever happened, I keep telling him,
yeah.
I'm going to get you in the Jeep and I'm going to unhook it and we're just going to drive away.
That's right. So we're very careful with our lifeboat, which we call Starfish.
Yeah.
Check another episode when you want to know the names of our vehicles. But so, yeah, we were at that spot. We had the trucker behind us now.
Yep.
And he's clearly still looking something up. And we had to make a decision. What did we do?
Well, we decided to go ahead and unhook the Jeep, because we were in a situation where we were going to have to unhook the Jeep to do anything, whether we wanted to U-turn or turn left or turn around or whatever. Also, what we decided to do was unhook the Jeep so that I could drive ahead up a ways and assess the situation again. We've had to do that before.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pilot boat. So she can go out and check to see, is the rig, which is very challenged with what we can do with it, will we have problems?
Right.
And we already had 2 red flags. So
with the truck and the sign.
That's right. We're like, something could be wrong ahead, so let's don't get into a situation.
And while we were unhooking the Jeep, which doesn't take very long, it's,
we're really good at that.
3 minutes to unhook and go. While we were unhooking the Jeep, a highway patrol SUV drove by. And we're like, looking at him, trying to get a wave. Is everything okay? I figured he might stop and let us know what the situation is.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out whether that was a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
Because it was a good thing that he didn't say, hey, turn around. But it was a bad thing that we don't know why he was going forward.
Right.
To save somebody else? We didn't know.
He just didn't really acknowledge
It
us.
just kind of blew by. Yeah.
But then the trucker
That's right.
pulled out and went on his way. And he did wave. I'm like, huh? You all right? And he's like, what I took to be a wave. I don't know. Again, he was a flatbed semi-truck. And Russ is like, well, maybe he's going to go rescue someone up there.
And sure enough, he was picking up equipment up there.
Yeah.
But he wasn't rescuing somebody. No.
But okay. So we unhooked and we have walkie-talkies, our method of communication.
Love those. Highly
Best
recommend.
thing ever. So I pulled out around and went up the hill, and we had agreed, okay, let me get far enough and make sure that you always have an exit plan, that there's room on the side of the road or a little off turn or somewhere that we could turn the rig around if we needed to. So I needed to get out ahead to check the conditions. So I went off, and on the way up this hill, so this is going from, 5,000, 6,000 feet elevation to like 8,000 feet. We were seriously going through the mountaintops with snow. But okay. So anyway, I set off. On my way up the first hill, that truck had gone off on the side of the road, and he was picking up some heavy vehicle equipment, like a big, huge tractor and a backhoe thing. That's why he went up, to get this equipment out of there. There was road work. So he was sitting on the side of the road. And again, I waved to him as I went past.
So we had to time it because our radios, while we love them, have a certain number of miles before, you do lose connection there. And so...
And you never know if cell is going to work.
That's right.
Especially when you're out in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere.
So at some point, Sherry was having to give, feedback. Hey, there's nothing wrong here. I saw this. There is a pull off there. I was radioing back that I heard her, because if I didn't radio back, I said, if you don't hear, Roger, or, hey, I heard you, that means I didn't hear you the first time. So yeah, at that point, the plan was she was going to stay X miles ahead, and I was going to just kind of follow behind slowly, being prepared to just stop and turn
have
around.
Have an escape plan.
Yeah, have a backup plan. So,
and this little shortcut thing was 44 miles long.
Yeah, not a really good shortcut, by the way. And it was slow, right? It wasn't like we went off of a 55, 65 mile an hour road to something you went 35 because there was corners and stuff.
And going up through the hills.
It was beautiful, though.
It was.
Scary, but beautiful. So.
And Russ kept saying, hey, there's not a lot of cars coming either
I
direction.
didn't see any cars, to be honest. Zero, which kept worrying me.
So we proceeded. There were a couple more flooded caution signs. They were set off to the side of the road, and the road was dry. So I kept going, and we kept, communicating back and forth. And Russ made his way. And how was it?
Yeah. There was a couple of spots. The third one where the water was rushing so strong underneath.
Yeah, there was a bit.
There was parts of the road where like, that might not be there eventually. So it was this is all because of the snow runoff from the mountains, the record snows. So it's beautiful until it starts washing things out.
And at one point, I got far enough ahead, maybe 10 miles into this thing. And I'm like, oh, there's snow.
Yeah, I'm never going to drive the rig in snow unless something goes horribly wrong. So it's hard enough to drive.
But it was way off on the side of the road, on the mountains that were just over there.
And then eventually it was on the side of the road. So,
yeah,
eventually.
Yeah, that was exciting. It was really exciting.
So the whole point of this dangerous thing, like we got led astray by the app that was telling us an accurate way to go. It was legitimate. It actually did match the weight and the length. I mean, there was really nothing wrong with the road. But what was interesting and caught us off guard, and that's one of the things we've learned, was that sometimes there's other dimensions to the travel that you need to take into account. Like this turns out to be, previous weather conditions of high snow turns into lots of runoff, which turns into flooding. And what we didn't know at the time, the road had been closed up until that day. We didn't know this. They had just opened that road, and we were one of the first ones on it. We just didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's why there was still water and still sketchy areas. We just didn't understand that at the time.
Yeah. There were also several gates across the highway that they can legitimately shut the road down. You cannot go past. Those gates were all open, and the couple of flooded signs had been moved off to the side of the road. Clearly, it had flooded because there was mud,
debris, and everything.
Dirt on the road. But there was only the one place where we actually went through a bit of standing water, and that was like at the very end, and it was getting dark, and I couldn't, I don't know. I think Russ had to assess that situation in the RV when he got to it. But yeah, at that point, it was we wouldn't have been able to go all the way back. We would have just had to park, and then we got to the national forest there.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, while we were doing this 40 miles or something, which is crazy, we were chatting back and forth over the radios. And I remember a couple of times I was like, you know what this reminds me of? And I started bringing back some of the past stories of where we had been places that were scary, because it was kind of concerning me that I wasn't seeing cars, when it was flooding, we were in the middle of nowhere. And, I did not want to have some, disaster to happen to our house. We were moving our house at this time, not just off-roading or something. We were moving our house. So, but it ended up okay.
We made it.
We made it. Look,
we
we're
made
here.
it.
Yay! We're not podcasting from the middle of the Sierra Nevadas. We're actually on the other side.
Oh, so the whole point of the story. And then we did get to Lee Vining, California, which is the
beautiful
backdoor of Yosemite.
Overlooks the lake. Mono Lake.
Interesting
lake, by the way.
Oh, it's amazing. It has these stalactite things growing up out of the lake.
Yeah.
Like little fairy castles coming out of the lake. And the lake is such a weird color, this
super salty
aquamarine.
And it's got brine shrimp, like just thick with brine shrimp.
It's a saltwater lake. Heavy salt. And anyway, really interesting. So we're here at Mono Vista RV Park overlooking this incredible, huge lake. And we had plans. I kind of knew that Tioga Pass might not be open because the snowpack this year is 244% above the normal snowfall. So heavy snows up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And Tioga Pass usually opens by the end of May, but sometimes in heavy snow years, it's not until June, July sometimes, and they don't really know. And a lot of this you have no way of knowing for sure until you get here. And we went to the visitor center and talked to the girl ranger there who told us, oh no, that's not going to be happening. And all of the other 3 passes further north, those aren't going to be opening either.
It's crazy.
So we're like, okay, what?
No, but you're right. That the whole point is sometimes you don't know, and having these backup plans, like we told you, how we stop and assess and what we're going to do. We obviously had to reassess our whole plans for Yosemite. That wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And so we looked at alternatives, and some of those alternatives, like the ghost.
We are like 10 miles from the most famous ghost town in the United States, which is Bodie, California. And it's an old mining town. And it was taken over by the state of California as a state park in 1962. There's about 150 buildings, all in various states of disrepair and abandonment. But they, rather than go in and rebuild and Disneyfy it and make it a tourist attraction, they're just letting it age. It's a state park. Leaving.
And it had its own disaster that kept us from it. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't even the same disaster.
So at the visitor center, when we were talking about Yosemite and all this other stuff with the ranger, we said, okay, well, we kind of figured that might be the situation. That's okay. We'll go up to Bodie and check out the ghost town, which is really cool for me. But she's like, oh no.
It was a big sinkhole. So we're just moving from one disaster now, probably also from the water runoff,
right?
Same thing. But
the road had flooded and basically caved in. There was no road to Bodie.
So and we've had these before where things don't go as planned, and you have to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
So we had a good time.
Just go
here.
with it.
Yeah, good time.
Yeah.
Why this is important on this Dangerous Detours is we've had similar challenges before. Pretty recently, when we were trying to go from Palm Springs to, what's the name of the town in California?
Temecula, California.
There you go. And what happened there?
Yeah. So the RV Safe GPS had us going through Palm Desert, over the mountains to Temecula. Pretty direct route, actually. But then when I was looking at the map and we're driving across to get to the mountain pass, I guess, in Southern California, I noticed I'm
Zooming in.
zooming in on the map to see what this road looks like, and it's just a mess. It's like spaghetti noodles, back and forth, windy, twisty, really tight turns. And I'm like, Russ, do you think does this look okay?
Well, even before that, we were on, it was like 15 or 215, one of the major freeways. And at some point, Sherry says, we're going to take a left here pretty soon, and we're going to go over, towards those mountains. And I was like, these mountains were high. And I was like, we're going to take the rig up those mountains? And I made a joke. I'm like, maybe there's a tunnel or something, because I knew the navigation through the mountains was going to be pretty stark. But we took a left and we started going through Palm Desert and heading directly for these mountains. And that's when she's showing she's holding her phone up while I'm driving. She's like, does this look okay? And I'm like, oh my goodness, that cannot be right. I mean, it was truly spaghetti.
But that was the RV safe route. That was the RV friendly.
I asked that question. Does it say that it's RV safe? And she said, yeah, it says that. But we didn't believe it, right? This is that verify. Trust but verify. So we were going to visit friends there. And we said, hey, let's call the friends. Make sure this is the right route. And you
call Shane, Sherry.
Call Shane.
And I did. I said, hey, is this the way we should be coming? And he's like, God, no.
Don't ever do that. What are you talking about?
Don't do that. So again, we were in a situation where we had to find a safe place to stop.
We got lucky there because thank goodness he said don't go when he did, because we were about to enter the one lane road up the mountain, and there was a community college there at a light, and we turned left, and they have this big, beautiful round turnaround, which when you drive a big rig, turning and U-turns are scary.
Especially in town.
In town. And so it was dumb luck that it was right there, and so we got an easy turnaround, and he was talking us through how to get back on the main freeway where we were, and you go around the mountains.
Around the mountain.
And that was so much easier. And why we know that was a difficult thing was later in that week, we went on that road with the Jeep to see what it was going to be like. Because we were heading over. And it
going
was
to Palm Springs.
Very difficult if we were in the rig. We were so glad we didn't do it in the rig.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's when I have to write RV Life about, because that was
they need to fix that.
Scary.
Yeah. So that was an example. You're right. That was just recently that we had that. So we're like, not back to back. Well,
that was just before Las Vegas.
Just before. So we had and we had another one before that. That was
in Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was a different set of problems. What was that?
And that was way back in October.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were going to Pennsylvania, and I remember we got into Western Pennsylvania, and I was like, oh, this is really nice. And we stopped. We were on the turnpike, which turns out is very expensive, but okay. And we use our Easy Pass, the Sun Pass that we bought in Florida. Turns out it's in the Easy Pass network, because you travel across the states and you find all kinds. You happen upon, or suddenly you're just driving on a turnpike or a toll road. And there's always this sense of panic of, what do we do? Because we don't want them to send a toll
to our house and have to deal with it. So we have a Sun Pass. It's actually part of a broader network of passes, and it covers a large number of states, which is nice as long as it's in the window.
Yeah,
they bill it, and it's all easy to go.
Yeah.
So the turnpike, we got off that, and we ended up in this small town, Downingtown. We were heading towards on the way towards a KOA.
We were trying to figure out how to get from the turnpike to Westchester KOA. Oh, but wait. Western Pennsylvania was beautiful. And we stopped an overnight at a Harvest Host, which was a moonshine distillery. And where were we?
Flight 93 Memorial. That's right.
Yeah.
That was moving. That was amazing. If you haven't been there, we had not known where that was at the time. We really enjoyed it. It was like very touching. It's just incredible to go and see the impact of what it had on families and the whole area. It was moving. And
they have a beautiful memorial, museum with stories and
it's
the
hard
telephones
to deal with.
And the debris and people's driver's license and work badges that they found at the site. But they also have this Tower of Voices, which is the same number of chimes in this huge tower as the people who died in that crash. And they all have a different pitch, so it sounds like voices in the wind.
It was amazing.
Beautiful. So Western Pennsylvania was gorgeous. And then we got back on the turnpike the next day to Eastern Pennsylvania, where we were visiting friends. My good friend, one of my sisters, lives in Pennsylvania, and your work friend is over in
Mark. Mark.
In Pittsburgh.
That's right.
So anyway, we got on the road that second day on the turnpike, and we get a note that a bridge was out by this Westchester KOA. So we're following the RV safe route to get to the campground, trusting a little too much. And we get off into this little small town where it's Sunday, church is out, there's people along the sidewalks that are right on the street, there's low-hanging power lines.
Yeah, the wires crossing the town were very, very low. And when you drive a big rig, you're always worried you're going to catch something on one of your AC units or something above and just, take out all this stuff. And so we were driving through this tiny little town where we barely fit on it, which was already concerning us. We were like, is this RV safe? We asked that a lot. Is this RV safe? And
we're getting better at this, though. I feel.
Are. Whenever something doesn't seem right, we start to double, triple check. But we were stuck. At this point, we were pulling the Jeep. We were downtown this tiny little town, and we knew we were going to make a left-hand turn and be out of downtown. We were going to be safe. We're good to go. Just
on
one
this
more
highway,
left turn. So,
the state highway.
Yeah. So we get to make the turn off the little downtown, and there's a train bridge. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Train trestle that we had to go under, and.
It wasn't 13 feet high.
It was too low, too low. And unfortunately, we had like maybe 2 RV lengths before we got there. So we had to stop immediately, and there was cars everywhere. And this is where you're making fast decisions.
Right.
What do you do?
It was just turn left, turn left. It was the only thing we could do.
There was only a left, and it was into an apartment complex, which was not good either. But we knew we couldn't go into the bridge. So we pulled in this apartment complex, and we had to stop and then start looking on our maps and come up with a plan C or plan D because things were unraveling here. So we started to look for rerouting. And at that point, we kind of had to give up on RV Safe TripWizard because we knew it didn't know how to get there.
She was not helping.
And we had already called the KOA, and they had offered to call us back and give us directions. They weren't helping us. They never called us back. So we started looking at different routes with Google and the other maps. And the best approach we came up with was like 2 blocks backwards. There was a bridge that goes over the train trestle, which we were like, great, we're just going to go over that one. So we get to that bridge, hang a right to go over the bridge, and there's a sign there. And instead of being a too low, this one has a warning about weight limits. And that's one of the other things that RV TripWizard looks for is, do you weigh too much? Now, this had a weight limit that said, don't exceed this, but it said, unless you're a local delivery. And we were literally
We're local
delivery. So we gunned it over the bridge. And it was a brand new bridge. It wasn't like a rickety old bridge or anything. And we got across that. But it was, and that wasn't even the final part of the drama. That was just the first 3, because we had the low wires, low bridge, and then the weight of the bridge was the first 3 steps. And we were still another 10 miles from the KOA.
Yeah. And it was a windy, twisty, little dangerous road with the branches that were scratching. And then we started to get to our first road closed, bridge out, road closed sign.
Kept warning us that up ahead you were going to have a bridge out and a road closed. And keep in mind, I'll be honest, the roads felt like they were designed for horse and buggy. It was really,
it
really
is Amish
thin.
country, yeah.
Yeah, very, very thin roads. And so when we make corners, some of the corners would say, longer than 30 feet, you can't make this turn because it was like a right-hand turn. We don't just make right-hand turns. We make these wide, sweeping ones. So we were going to have to take 2 lanes to make those, and I had to do it at certain times. So, which was like super scary. All of this was not RV safe at all. Yeah. And then this added this when Sherry points out that we were also seeing, hey, by the way, up ahead, you're going to have a bridge out. And we were like, how are we going to get there?
Right. And maybe when I called them before, they said, oh, you're going to go past the sign.
Yeah, don't believe the sign. Just go past it. What could go wrong?
Well, about the third sign, I'm like, this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. We need to stop and figure out what the hell's going on. Fortunately, off to the right, there was a large equipment, public utility works, a big parking lot. So we pulled in. And again, the immediate thing is, okay, let's unhook the Jeep. I'll drive the Jeep to go see what's going on. And Russ stayed.
Read my email on my phone there. So finally got to look at my phone.
And actually, I only had to go 1.5 miles. I did have to go around another bridge out. Road closed. Don't go any further. Except on the last one, I see this little piece of, paper.
Yeah.
Like maybe it was pink, but it said KOA, okay.
Yeah, it was like, accept the KOA, basically. You're like, if you're going to KOA, you're good. But everybody else, you can't make it.
So I'm just shaking at this point. But I go around the sign and I go down this road next to the creek, next to the river. And I get to the last sign, which is basically the bridge is out 500 feet ahead. Do not go past this sign. Okay. Here I go. Because actually at that point I could see there's a railroad track, of course, because
every campground has one of these three things: power lines nearby, some sort of airport, or a railroad track, or the top one is some sort of refinery or chemical plant. So that's every campground has some combination of those.
Because that's why there's not a housing development there, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I did see the railroad track, and then it's a right turn up a hill to this campground. I could see the signs at this point, but then directly in front of me, it's like, no joke. The sign was in the middle of the road. Do not pass. The bridge was out like 100 feet beyond that.
It had washed out the year before for a previous
hurricane. Yeah. So I went up the road and I'm just like, she's like, are you okay? I'm like, no. And my RV, and she's like, oh my God. Because she thought we'd wrecked the RV or something. And I'm like, no, it's fine. But how do we get our 40-foot RV through this situation and up here? And it was just crazy. But we did. I went back and we followed and we got up there.
Yeah. So, the whole point of this was like these dangerous detours. Many times it's caused by, too much trust in the application. So you do a lot of planning. That's like the first step Sherry does. Is like the Monday through Friday when we're working, we're traveling on the weekends. She has to work out all the best ways we might get there. She also has to figure out like one of, 500 different places to stay that are good for us for the next week. And then once you pick those, then the paths start to reduce down to a limited set of paths you can take. So the planning is the first step, right?
Yep.
And it's a big part of what you do is that planning.
Yeah. Figuring out where to go and how to get there.
Yeah. And then so the second part is like when things don't go right when you're on the road, like you got to be pretty flexible, right?
And you stop and assess the situation. You look for, what do you look for? You look for the trucks. You look for the semi-trucks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you're right. There's things we do. So that when there's roads that don't have big trucks on them, we get a little worried. But there's the trust but verify on those applications, right? So you've got to double check, see if there's anything recent that's happened, right? There's been construction, or in this case where we were this week, there was washouts from the excessive snowfall and things like that. But the combination of being flexible when something goes wrong, and being able to disconnect, in our case, and have our pilot boat go out there and check things out, which is a big advantage to what we do. We drive a Class A and pull a vehicle, and we talk about it quite often that we had considered, pulling a trailer and pulling a fifth wheel because they have some advantages over our rig. But one of the big advantages we have is, unhooking the Jeep and driving it separately. We can both drive and navigate through things. If we had to separate and take our truck out there and leave our trailer behind to go see if something's going on, you wouldn't be able to do the pilot boat thing where both vehicles could keep moving. And so we take advantage of that. We totally take it. And the one you just described there in Pennsylvania did the same thing. Disconnected. You went ahead and I followed along.
The other thing we should mention is getting out of these situations, because we managed to get there, but then quite often we're in a situation where we walk or drive out to find the safer way out.
That's an excellent point, because we were so shaken by how hard it was to get into that Pennsylvania KOA. We knew we couldn't go back the way we came. So during the week, we made a couple of trips out after hours and just tried different ways. And sure enough, found a very nice, wish we would come in that other way.
Right.
But we found a nice way out that Trip Wizard never would have recommended. And it was a way safer way out of there. And you're right. Then you know when the weekend's ending, you're going to be traveling. You're not freaking out of like, oh no, we got to do that again.
Because I do worry and stress out the entire time in some situations, in some places, of how the hell are we going to get out of here?
Yeah.
So we've started to do that to figure out our exit plan as well.
Yeah. And this is like, we've given 3 examples of these dangerous detours, or, kind of funny afterwards, but, a little scary during it. But it's something that we've gotten better at, we think. Like that's how we know how to stop and disconnect and, separate out the worries by not putting all the eggs in one basket and just keep going.
Yeah.
But it helps knowing that we can do that. And it also adds to the list of things to look for. Like, we hadn't quite considered this kind of situation. Like, we're even trying to figure out what are the risks as we leave here tomorrow.
Right. And traveling north up Highway 395 into Oregon.
Yeah.
One thing we have learned, talking to Ranger Girl at the Visitor Center, Girl Ranger.
Not Power Ranger, but, she was pretty smart, though. She was really smart.
Yeah, she was.
She
amazing.
knew everything.
But another thing to check is she had suggested before we go checking Caltrans, the State Department of Transportation. And most states do have, especially on their big interstate and highway system, they have traffic cameras, they have up-to-date reports, closures, detours, all those kinds of things. And they're more up to the minute. I didn't really have access to that when I was trying to figure out what was going on here from 300 miles away.
Yeah, and it's these little tips, like when we were talking about the tire blowout, and we realized that a lot of states have that road ranger, right? Like these these little tips about there are services in different states that you should be able to rely on to have the most up-to-date assistance or information. And, we're starting to add that to our list of things that we know we can dip into if, like, there's some information we don't have. Sometimes that's right there.
Also, a long time ago, when we first started, we bought a trucker's atlas, which we have pulled out a couple of times when we're, like in this situation, we need to look on those big rig friendly roads. And in the trucker's atlas, they have them highlighted in orange, the semi-truck safe routes.
Right.
Highway 120 wasn't one of them.
That was another one of those red flags. Yeah.
But yeah,
but that kind of also rhymes with, if we don't see trucks on the road, we get a little worried. And so by using this trucker's atlas kind of thing, it kind of says that you're going to be safe there, because if they can handle it, we can probably handle it too.
Yeah. And generally where there's services, truck stops, rest areas, it's kind of fun to go off the beaten path, every once in a while, but it can also be pretty scary.
Yeah, we prefer to do that in the Jeep, where we know, if we're just in the Jeep, we could walk away from the Jeep and go get a Uber or something. But if we take our rig and drop it into a ditch somewhere, that's not so good.
And we risk not getting to our next destination and being ready for work.
That's right. That's the balance
on Monday
there.
Or Tuesday, as the case may be.
Well, this was great. So anyways, it's been interesting. We didn't know we were going to talk about this topic. We had some other items we were going to talk about, but this was fresh in our minds, and it was another learning lesson, and it all worked out great, luckily. So we're
still alive.
We're still here, and Charlie's fine. Charlie, our rig, is fine. So, but anyways, is there anything else we haven't covered?
I think that's good for tonight.
I think it is good. Well, anyways, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. And we look forward to you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.